My ex demanded I pay for her 5 kids. When I said no to the school trip, her family destroyed me. But then she asked me to buy her a house, and everything exploded. I'm 34 years old. I work in finance. And after 8 years of dealing with this, I need to tell you what my life has been like since my twins were born. Because honestly, there are days when I feel like I'm living in an alternate dimension where the normal rules of divorce and parenting just don't apply. My kids are 8 now. They're incredible. And I love them more than anything in this world. But their mother, my ex Elena, it has turned co-parenting into something I don't even know how to describe without sounding like I'm exaggerating, though believe me, I'm not. It all started pretty normal, I guess. Elena and I split up when the twins were just a few months old. It wasn't dramatic or anything. We were just really young. I was like 26. She was 25. And we realized that our relationship wasn't going to work long term. We had very different ideas about life, about money, about basically everything, but we both agreed on one thing. We wanted to be good parents to our children. Was pretty civilized. I mean, we established a shared custody arrangement. I paid my share of child support without any issues. We communicated about everything related to the kids, and I thought, well, this is the best we can do given the circumstances. The first 2 years were like that, relatively calm, with the normal ups and downs of any divorce situation, but nothing out of the ordinary. Then Elena met David. Now, let me be clear. I have nothing against Elena rebuilding her life. I really don't. I was happy for her when she told me she'd met someone, that things were going well, that they were getting married. The kids were like 2.5 at that point, and I thought it would be good for them to have a father figure in their mom's house, someone stable, you know. David seemed like a decent guy. He worked in construction. He had a daughter the same age as our twins from a previous marriage, and when Elena told me all this at a coffee shop near her place, I remember thinking, perfect, this can work out well for everyone. The problems started subtly, so gradually that at first, I didn't even realize what was happening. Elena began suggesting that when I picked up the twins for my weekend, maybe I could also take David's daughter, you know, so the kids could play together and strengthen their bond as siblings. Which, fine. I did it a couple of times because I didn't want to be the difficult guy, and because I thought it would be good for my kids to have a good relationship with their stepsister. But then, it became a constant expectation. Every time I planned something with the twins, like going to an amusement park or the movies or whatever, Elena would ask if David's daughter could come too. And when I said no, that it was my time with my children, she'd look at me like I was the worst human being on the planet and say things like, "But they're a family now. You can't just exclude her like that." This escalated. Over the following months and years, Elena started expecting me to buy birthday and Christmas gifts, not just for my twins, but also for David's daughter. When I explained that wasn't my responsibility, that her stepfather should be the one buying those things, she'd get angry and say I was being unfair, that I was creating divisions in the family, that the kids were going to notice the difference and feel bad. There was one time, I think the twins were like 4, when I bought them new bikes for their birthday. Really nice bikes because I'd worked hard and saved for it. And Elena literally called me crying, saying that David's daughter had felt terrible because she didn't get an equal bike, and that I'd ruined the celebration. I told her, "Elena, her father can buy her a bike. I'm not responsible for her," and she hung up on me. Looking back, I should have set firmer boundaries from the beginning, but I didn't want to be confrontational, and honestly, I thought that eventually she'd understand there was a clear line between my responsibilities as a father to my children and what she expected me to do for her new family. But the expectations just grew. Elena started asking me to babysit David's daughter when she and David needed to go out, as if I were the automatic babysitter for all the kids in her house. Once she called me on a Friday night. I was home without the twins that weekend and asked if I could come babysit David's daughter because last-minute plans had come up and they had no one to leave her with. I said no, that wasn't my role. And she exploded, telling me I was selfish and didn't understand what it meant to be part of a blended family. Eventually, I had to make a difficult decision. Like 5 years ago, when the twins were 3, I changed our co-parenting dynamic to what's called parallel parenting. Basically, it means we minimize communication to the bare minimum necessary. We focus only on the essentials about the kids, and each of us lives our life separately without expecting the other to participate in joint activities or decisions that aren't absolutely necessary. Elena didn't take this well. She accused me of emotionally abandoning my children because I didn't want to go to family dinners at her house or participate in big gatherings where her whole extended new family would be. I explained that I would always be there for my twins, but that I wasn't going to pretend to be part of one big happy family with her and David and their other children. It was a horrible conversation, full of screaming on her part and me trying to stay calm and rational, but in the end, I held my ground. Then, like 3 years after Elena and David got married, she had a baby with him. A beautiful little girl, I'm sure. Though I've never seen her in person because by that point I barely interacted with Elena. Beyond custody exchanges. The twins would tell me about their little sister, and I'd tell them, that's great. She's probably very cute. But internally, I was like, great, now there's another person in that house, and Elena's probably going to find new ways to ask me to contribute financially to her upbringing, and I wasn't wrong. A couple of months after the baby was born, Elena sent me a text asking if I could help with the hospital expenses because, according to her, my twins benefited from having a sister, and therefore I should contribute. I responded with a simple, no, this is not my responsibility, and she left me on read. But wait, it gets better, or worse, depending on how you look at it. Turns out David has a nephew, his sister's son, who was apparently going through hard times, and they decided to take him into their home. So, now in Elena's household, there are 4 kids, my 2 twins when they're there, David's daughter from his previous marriage, David's nephew, and the baby Elena and David have together. It's a full house, you know what I mean? And of course, Elena started acting as if all those kids were equally my responsibility because, in her words, they're all siblings and form a family unit, and I can't just ignore half of my children's family. All of this brings me to the event that basically made me write this, because after 8 years of this craziness, what happened a few months ago was the straw that broke the camel's back. The twins' school announced an educational trip, one of those expensive school trips to a big city with museums and cultural activities and all that. And the thing is, it was for a mixed-age class, so it included my twins who are 8, David's daughter who's also 8, and David's nephew who's like 10. The trip cost like $1,000 per kid, not including extra money for meals and souvenirs and stuff, so we're talking about a considerable investment. When I found out about the trip, I called the school, confirmed all the details, and paid the full fee for my 2 twins without hesitation. I mean, it's almost $2,000 plus additional expenses, but it's totally worth it because it's an incredible opportunity for them to learn and experience new things. Elena called me 2 days after I paid for the twins. Her tone was casual at first, asking how I was, how work was going, that kind of superficial chat we don't normally have, so I knew something was coming. And yeah, after like 5 minutes of meaningless conversation, she drops the bomb. She tells me it's wonderful that the twins can go on the trip, but that there's a problem. Neither she nor David can afford to send David's daughter and the nephew too, and that it would be terrible for the family dynamic if only my twins go and the other 2 kids stay home. She tells me, Marcus, you already paid for 2 kids, what's another $2,000 to you? That way everyone can go together and nobody feels excluded. And I sat there on my couch with the phone to my ear, thinking, is she serious right now? I told her, Elena, listen to me very clearly. I paid for my children, for the kids who are my responsibility. I'm not going to pay for David's children or his nephews or any other kid you decide to bring into your house. That's not my job. She immediately changed her tone, started yelling that I was selfish, that I was destroying the family, that my own children were going to suffer because I was creating division and resentment. I told her that my kids weren't going to suffer from going on an incredible trip, and that if she and David wanted the other kids to go, they could find a way to pay for it, that it wasn't my problem. She started crying, saying that I didn't understand how hard it was for her to manage a house with so many kids, that she and David were struggling financially, that I had a good job and could easily afford it. I told her, Elena, I don't care how hard your situation is. You chose to marry David. You chose to take in his nephew. You chose to have another baby with him. Those are your decisions, and I'm not going to finance them. And I hung up. I thought that would be the end of it, that Elena would finally understand I wasn't going to change my mind, but oh no, this was just beginning. The next day, I got a call from David. I'd never spoken directly with David about this kind of thing before. It had always been through Elena. But there he was, on my phone telling me we needed to meet, to talk man to man about the situation. I agreed because I thought, maybe he's more rational. Maybe we can resolve this in a civilized way. We met at a diner near my work on a Wednesday afternoon. I came straight from the office, still in my suit, and he arrived in his construction work clothes, and from the start I could feel the tension in the air. David started by saying he understood my position, that he knew technically the other kids weren't my responsibility, but that life wasn't just about technical responsibilities, but about doing the right thing for the family. He told me that my twins saw his daughter and his nephew as real siblings, that they lived together half the time, that they shared rooms and meals and experiences, and that me sending only my kids on the trip while the others stayed home was going to create resentment that could last years. I told him, David, with all due respect, those are your children to care for, not mine, and if you and Elena can't afford to send them on this trip, maybe you should reconsider how many kids you can actually support. He turned red, literally red, and said that was cruel and unnecessary, that they were doing the best they could. I told him I was also doing the best I could for my own children, and that didn't include financing his entire family. Then Elena showed up at the diner, which surprised me because David hadn't mentioned she was coming, and the two of them sat across from me in that booth like it was an intervention or something. Elena started again with the same speech about family and unity and how selfish I was, but this time David was backing her up, nodding at everything she said and adding his own comments about how I was damaging all the children with my attitude. I sat there, letting them talk for like 10 minutes without interrupting, just watching them and thinking about how absurd this whole situation was. When they finally finished their coordinated speech, I told them very calmly, I'm not going to change my mind. This is not subject to negotiation or debate. My twins are going on the trip. You figure out how to handle the situation with your other kids, and this conversation is over. I got up, left money for my coffee on the table, and walked out of the diner while they were still sitting there, probably planning their next move. The next few days were an absolute nightmare. Elena's mother called me, screaming that I was a terrible father and should be ashamed of myself. Elena's sister sent me like 20 text messages about how I was traumatizing innocent children by being cheap with my money. Even Elena's brother, who I'd never spoken to in my life, left me a voicemail saying that if he had the resources I have, he'd never let any child in his family feel less than another. It was like Elena had activated an entire PR campaign against me. And honestly, it was exhausting. Every time my phone rang, I braced myself for another person from Elena's clan, telling me how horrible I was. But here's the thing, and this is important. I knew I was right. I wasn't being cruel or unfair. I was establishing healthy boundaries that I should have established years ago. My financial responsibilities are to my children, the twins Elena and I created together, not to the collection of kids she and David have decided to gather in their house. So I withstood all the pressure without giving an inch. I blocked most of her family members after the first few days because it was too much, and I stood firm in my decision. After like a week of this chaos, I called Elena one last time. I told her, Elena, listen to me very carefully, because I'm not going to repeat this. I pay for my twins. That's my legal and moral responsibility. I'm not going to pay for any other child in your house, no matter how much pressure you put on me or how many of your family members call me. If you continue with this, I'm going to have to talk to my lawyer about harassment and possibly adjust our custody agreement. Do you understand me? There was silence on the other end of the line for like 30 seconds, and then she simply said, okay, and hung up. And just like that, the calls stopped. The messages stopped. Everything stopped. I don't know if she talked to her family or what, but suddenly everyone stopped contacting me and I could finally breathe again. The twins went on the school trip last month. They sent me photos and videos, and they looked so happy, so excited about everything they were seeing and experiencing. They called me one night from the hotel where they were staying, just to tell me about the museum they'd visited that day and about an incredible planetarium, where they learned about the solar system. Hearing their voices so full of joy and enthusiasm confirmed that I'd made the right decision. that providing them with these opportunities was exactly what I was supposed to do as their father. Here's the part that still surprises me. When the twins came back from the trip, I went to pick them up at Elena's house as usual, and she came out to the door to talk to me, which was unusual because normally she just sends the kids outside with their backpacks. She told me, "I need to tell you something," and I prepared myself for another conflict, but instead she said, "You were right. I shouldn't have pressured you that way. David's daughter and the nephew are fine. They understood that not everyone could go this time, and it wasn't as traumatic as I thought it would be." I stood there not knowing what to say, because in 8 years, Elena had never told me I was right about anything related to the kids. I told her, "I appreciate you telling me that," and she stood there like she wanted to say something else, but finally just nodded and went inside. The last few weeks have been relatively peaceful. Elena and I have had normal custody exchanges without drama, without strange demands, without pressure about things that aren't my responsibility. I thought, finally, after all these years, we've reached an understanding about how this works, about what my obligations are and what they aren't. The twins are fine. They don't seem to have suffered any trauma from the fact that their step-siblings didn't go on the trip with them. In fact, they're closer than ever because they shared this incredible experience together. But then, because apparently the universe can't let me have peace for long, Elena called me 3 days ago with a new request that almost made me laugh at how ridiculous it is. She tells me that she and David have been looking for a bigger house, because with 4 kids plus the baby, they really need more space. That they've found a perfect house in an excellent neighborhood with good schools, but that they can't qualify for the mortgage with just David's income. And then, and this is what almost made me hang up immediately, she tells me that if I buy the house in my name and rent it to them, or better yet, if I just buy them the house as a gift so my children can grow up in a better environment, I'd be doing something wonderful for the family. When I asked her why the hell she would think I'd buy a house for her and David, she told me it would be an investment in my children's future, that they live there half the time and deserve a comfortable and stable space. I told her, "Elena, absolutely not. I'm not going to buy a house for you and your husband. That's completely absurd." And she started with the same old argument about family and responsibility and thinking about the children. I told her I'd thought about the children every day of their lives, that I'd fulfilled each of my obligations to them and more, but that buying houses for my ex and her new husband was definitely not one of those obligations. I hung up before she could continue. Now I'm here, sitting in my house that I bought myself with my own money, wondering when this is going to end. When Elena is finally going to understand that there are real and serious limits to what she can expect from me. My twins are 8 years old. There are 10 more years until they're adults, 10 more years of dealing with these increasingly absurd situations. But you know what? I'm prepared for those 10 years. I'm going to keep being the best father I can be for my children. I'm going to keep providing them with opportunities and experiences and unconditional love. And I'm going to keep saying no every time Elena tries to turn me into the personal bank for her entire extended family. I've learned that setting boundaries doesn't make me selfish or cruel. It makes me someone who understands what my real responsibilities are and isn't afraid to defend those boundaries no matter how much pressure I receive. The twins are happy, they're healthy, they know their dad loves them and would do anything for them, and at the end of the day, that's the only thing that really matters.